So, Keyshawn, start us off. What exactly happened to Caitlin after that all-time great 18-point first quarter?
Well, she went 5 for 20 from there, right? You think about that.
Yeah.
That's adjustments, though. That's Don Staley and that's the defensive staff putting some clampers on that and saying, hey, you got your 18 in the first quarter. We're not going to allow you the rest of the game to do these sort of things. Now, she missed shots. She missed open shots, but they were crowding her. They were passing her off. They was making the necessary adjustments and harassing her. Skip, look, you can't continue to go on a run the way that she has when you don't get the help from your others. And I mentioned this to you last week when we talked about her. She's going to get hers, but everybody else, what about everybody else? Everybody else has to chip in. They chipped in against LSU. They didn't chip in against South Carolina. Okay, so that's one of the main reasons they lose this game. On top of South Carolina, been there, they done it. It's a kind of somewhat of a veteran team with transfers there. And Don Staley, let's face it, she knows how to coach. She's not going to allow the things that happened against LSU and what Kim Mulkey did, like just leaving this particular individual and you got her. You take care of her even though she's cooking for 40-plus points. And so you make these adjustments, and this is basically what happened at the end of the day. They did a great job defensively, and, partly she missed some shots, and they just never got back into a rhythm. That's the way I saw it.
Okay.
I think you could see the wear on her, right? So the physical wear, okay. She is a focal point of the defense, not just yesterday, but certainly on Friday. I mean, UConn gave her everything. So to have 2 times in 45-hour period where you have that much physical sort of beating up on you and people coming at you, I think you could see by the second half. She's 4 for 14. She's 1 of 7 from 3. That 1 of 7 number, though, to me is also about mental wear and tear. Having to be the person who carries the team, who, frankly, has to carry all of women's basketball is the position we've put her in a little bit unfairly at this point. And knowing, just from a basketball standpoint, if she doesn't catch fire, if she isn't electric, if she isn't 18 points in the third or fourth quarter, they have no chance of winning. You heard her after the game. That South Carolina team is so deep. They're so good. They have a center who is, nearly a foot taller than everyone else on the floor, bringing those rebounds down. She would have to be superhuman for all 4 quarters. And mentally, that is just an incredible weight to carry. So to me, I saw her pressing in that second half. I saw her taking some of those 3-pointers, just hoping to make it up on the scoreboard. And that is the weight of someone who knows it's all on her. And by the way, it was. And she wasn't superhuman, and that's okay. The South Carolina team is just so exceptional. You have to look at what that team did. It is an all-new starting 5.
Yes.
That's crazy to go undefeated, win the title, have freshmen coming off the bench to change the tide of the game for you. That is just such a complete, deep team. And key to your point, Iowa didn't have that.
True. Okay. So I'm first going to congratulate South Carolina because I thought they were extraordinary all year long. And this was, as Raven Johnson said after the game, the end of their revenge tour. And I was happiest for her of all the South Carolina players because if you remember what happened in the semifinal last year, Caitlin Clark just flat out disrespected her. And she was at the top of the circle with the ball, and Caitlin just backed off into the lane and just said, just go ahead. Just go ahead. Reminded me of what Pop used to do to LeBron back in the day. He used to just wave and say, just let him shoot that. So here she is, and she just waving at her, and it crushed Raven Johnson's spirit. And she said after the game, or after last night's game, that she actually thought about quitting basketball because it got so bad. I still think all these young players read their social media responses too much, but it just ate her alive. So this whole year for her was a revenge tour to get back to this moment. And to Keyshawn's point, yeah, they switched off some players, but for the most part, I'm going to say 75% of the time, Raven Johnson took Caitlin face-to-face, sort of throat-to-throat, here we go, and flipped the game on its head right at the end of the half when she stole the ball and went all the way down for a little layup that suddenly I looked up and I said, wait a second, South Carolina is up by 3 at halftime thanks to her. So I mostly congratulate her because she deserved this even more than the rest did. So the rest of the story was, as I said Friday, look, South Carolina's just too big for them.
Yes.
And Hannah Stulke played huge against LSU, and I thought she played big on Friday night, but she did not play big yesterday because, to your point,
It's hard to play.
Wait a
big
second.
against Cardoso.
Camila Cardoso is like a foot taller than she is. She's actually 6'2" to 6'7", so it's 5 inches that she was giving up. So Hannah Stuelke gets 3 rebounds yesterday. It's just not enough. You are going to get annihilated on the backboard, and you're going to give up way too many offensive rebounds. Okay, now back to Caitlin.
3 versus 17. That ain't that
It's just
my math is correct.
It's a complete mismatch.
That's a different number.
All right, so now I'm going to treat the women's game just the way I would treat the men's game, because they have earned the right to be criticized, if you will, like that. This is my highest form of regard and respect.
Yes.
I was disappointed in Caitlin, and I give you the tired excuse because she deserved it, because she plays 40 minutes every game. It's ridiculous because they have no bench. 37-0, they got outscored. And I'm looking down the bench, and they went with Feuerbach. I didn't think she even played for them, and suddenly she's getting minutes because they need somebody, because the 2 freshmen are coming in, as you point out, for South Carolina, and Tessa Johnson just raining threes. And Fulwiley just looks explosive. I'm saying, well, I was got nothing to deal with that. So the point was, yes, she wore out mentally and physically, but I just expected a little bit more because she's been it all year. And I thought, okay, it is the last game. She knows it's the last game. It's a tough turnaround because it's from late Friday night. And they started at noon out here in the Pacific time zone.
Not even the UConn game, though. Skip, you can go all the way back to a week ago to LSU. You still had to muster up energy, regardless to what LSU you beat them.
Absolutely.
But you still had that energy you had to get through to get to UConn, from UConn to get to South Carolina. That mental fatigue over those 3 games.
Okay, but again, many people were making the GOAT case for her, and we'll delve deeper in this in just a few minutes, but I'm watching, like, after 18 in the first quarter, I'm not sure you can get much better than what she did in the first quarter, right? Yeah. I mean, were you not impressed?
I was just like 18 points in an entire 2 games.
I sat back and I said, this is all time. And surely I didn't think she could sustain that. But to your point, the rest of the way she goes 5 for 20, and the rest of the way she goes 2 for 9 from 3. Yeah. Are your legs heavy, or is the weight on your brain heavy as you get
all
deeper?
of the above, Skip. When you're in those situations, like Rachel said, it's the mental fatigue, the stress level. You're carrying the women's basketball. You're trying to you're trying to accomplish a lot, right? You're trying to win your first national title. You're trying to show those that doubted you they're wrong. You're trying to also ball out to that claim that GOAT status. I mean, all of that. You don't think that young lady is going through those things in her mind the night before the game? Of course she is.
No, I got it.
1,000%.
And also, just, you have to think about the mountain in front of her, right? She would have had, we're joking, hey, you didn't expect her to score 18 in every quarter, right? You're on pace for 72 points. But that's kind of almost what she would have had to do, right?
I understand. That is true.
You have a team that was getting into this game favored by 7. They weren't favored by 2 points. They were favored by 7.
True.
Think about what Caitlin Clark would have had to do to beat a team like that. And it is a credit to her that you sat there in front of your team thinking maybe she could do it. I don't know, especially after that first quarter.
I didn't expect 18 a quarter, but I might expect 9 a quarter from there on.
I feel like if you ran 100 simulations of that game, South Carolina is winning,
You're probably
what,
right.
70 of them? And it's a credit to Caitlin Clark that there's 30 that she isn't, but it's still more likely South Carolina
but I reiterate, with 4 minutes left, they had cut it to 5 and made a stop and got the basketball back. And at that point, Kaylin looked gassed to me because she didn't want the basketball. And Kate Martin's, her close friend, is looking at her like, really? You want me to go? Yeah, you go. And Kate Martin dribbles into an error and lost the basketball, and that was it. Because then South Carolina said, that's enough of this, and that was that. And that was the end of Caitlin for the rest of the game. So my only point is, I thought maybe Caitlin would reach down. Keyshawn, you know how that feels when you're, what's the old Lombardi line that we've talked about? Fatigue makes cowards of us all. But you reach down and you just say, fatigue, go away. I'm not a coward. I want the basketball. I'm just going to suck it up, muster it up, reach down for one last little piece of magic, because she can be magic when she wants to be. And I've seen her do this again and again and again late in games. And she just wasn't home anymore. She wasn't there.
Maybe she was trying to preserve that 42% from 3.
Maybe. Is that what she was?
No, but that was the Skip LeBron.
And that's exactly what he did do. And that's what he continued to do. That's what he continued to do.
You can.
By the way, LeBron last night had that early April flu. I don't know what it was. It was something.
I mean, they sent him home. He came. He showed up. He tried to play. They sent him home.
But, Skip, you're right, though. There's something late in games that the competitiveness kicks in no matter how you feel.
But don't you think she got too competitive at the end? I feel like at the end she was pressing.
But what Skip is saying that nobody else touches the basketball with these 4 minutes to go except for me.
Clear out, I'm doing it.
I'm just going to do it. Even if it's slow, I'm going to get there.
Quick point of order to this. After the first quarter, she did not shoot a free throw. She shot 6 in the first quarter and made 5 of them, and she didn't shoot another free throw. So I'm just saying there's even a way. She just puts her head down because she's got first-step quickness and just go and try to foul somebody out or get to the free throw line somehow to score some points some way where you just suck it up and say, I'm going to do this.
And maybe she just thought her teammates at that moment in time could step up and take some of the load off of her. That's, it's a lot of different ways. As they say, she's making the right play at that time. And hopefully they would step up and hit those shots and not rely on her to do everything.
Yep. Well, listen, when she does get in the lane and kicks it to Gabby Marshall or to Kate Martin, they usually, you can just see it in their eyes like, thank you, I got this.
Yeah.
But she couldn't create because they had run her into the floor. And yet, after the game, I was a little surprised because you know how, quote unquote, killer competitors get. I thought she might sit up there and just shake her head and pound the table and say, we had them and we let them off the hook or something to that effect. And I got nothing but we are so proud of ourselves, which is cool because she had the weight of the world on her shoulders.
They really didn't have them, though. Even though they cut the lead down to 5.
But
really
I just thought maybe she wouldn't.
No.
I thought maybe she wouldn't give into it and she'd sit up there and shake her head and say, I let my team down or something to that. But she just wanted to talk about the magnitude of their achievement because her point was, whoever expected Iowa to get to 1 Final Four as opposed to 2 straight Final Fours and to the championship game. Wow, okay, twice in a row. Okay, well, that's great. But is it time to celebrate that at that moment? I wouldn't have, but that's the way I look at it. And I was just a little surprised by her.
For University of Iowa in women's basketball, I'm okay with them celebrating that because they may never, ever get there again.
They might not.
They may, I'm just saying, they may never, ever get there again. How many Caitlin Clarks are running around saying, I'm going to Iowa? I mean, like, no, I'm serious.
Well, a better point is how many Caitlin Clarks are running around, period.
In general, though.
Right?
When you think of what was she, a top 4 recruit in her class?
But
top 4.
Paige Beckers was the first.
No, I'm saying she's a top 4, so she's somewhere in that, depending on who you arguing or asking, she could be 2, she could be 3, she could be 4. They're not going to Iowa, man. I hate to say it.
Unless they grow up in West Des Moines.
Des Moines. I guarantee you there is some 7-year-old girl out there in Iowa today who has been watching Caitlin Clark.
But they're thinking about South Carolina, LSU, Stanford. I mean, that's what let's be honest with each other.
I agree.
See, I think that in that fourth quarter, Caitlin Clark was trying everything. I think she was kitchen sinking it. I think she knew, when she sat up there after the game and read off those rebounding numbers and said, hey, think about what it would have taken to make that up. I think that gave you a real window into her fourth quarter mentality. I think that told you that she is sitting there going, okay, I can't play center, right? I can't play every position.
Although she did lead them in rebounds. Go ahead.
But she can't, you cannot play every position, right? And we would have called her a ball hog and we would have said she wasn't playing team basketball.
I wouldn't have in the fourth quarter because she's Caitlin freaking Clark. And she's the greatest scorer in the history of women's basketball. But that's just me.
Right. But I think she knew, right, the rebound disparity. I think she knew how many points had to be made. So first, she's taking what I would say unadvised threes at certain points. I think she was chucking.
No, but we've been saying that all year.
Chucking the ball up in places.
In the first quarter, she took a couple. I said, that's just ridiculous. And it went in.
It wasn't the distance. It was that they were too strong, right? Where was she hitting? It wasn't that it wasn't that they were falling short. She was sometimes hitting the backboard or the back of the rim in a way where the angle was bad and you knew it was going to pop right back out, right? So first she's doing that. Then she's trying to pass to teammates. Great. If the defense is collapsing around me, I'm going to pass the ball. That didn't work, as you point out. I just think that there is a point where she sort of saw the overwhelming force in front of her. And there just wasn't a way through. And maybe you're right. There would have been some nights, 3 out of 10. I can't do the math, but some nights where she could have just exploded for another 18 points in the fourth. But it wasn't likely that was going to happen. We can't judge her against that's the standard. That's the most likely thing. And why didn't you measure up to it?
I understand.
That was the most unlikely thing, and it didn't happen.
I never, for one, as you know, Skip, thought that Iowa was going to beat South Carolina. Even if she had 60 points, for some reason they was going to score more. That's just, they had a deeper team and a better team.
Okay.
It's just a much better team.
But if you told me that Caitlin Clark would go 2 for 9 over the last 3 quarters from 3, I'd say this is a 25-point game. And they had the ball down 5 with 4 minutes left. I still don't even know how they did that, honestly. It's like ridiculous that they even had a prayer of a chance, and it was a prayer. And to your point, if she had come down and hit a 3 at that point to cut it to 2, I'm pretty sure South Carolina would have said no, no,
Came
no.
back, hit a 3, put it back to 5.
Like, God, they were bombing. They had a better 3-point shooting for percentage for the game. They shot 42% to 39% for Iowa. So how can you beat them when they outshot you from 3?
And the bench, too. I mean, you kept saying it,
Lord,
the bench
have
number,
mercy.
37-0.
37.
When the bench is outscoring your bench 37-0, if you're Caitlin Clark, again, now she's got to be the bench too. I mean, you cannot ask one person to do that much. No. And I just think that you look, South Carolina likes to say we don't have 5 starters, we have 10 starters. This is a credit to Dawn Staley, the way she has prepared that team. She has consistently taken freshmen through her time at South Carolina and prepared them to play at this elite level sooner than any other coach in the country has been able to do. And we saw that. I mean, you mentioned Phil Wiley. She came in and changed the energy of the game. And they told a great story on the broadcast about how Dawn sat her for a game in the middle of the season to sort of get her head straight about what she would need to do at this level. That is preparation in what? I mean, I don't know exactly what month it was, December, whatever that was, to get into April. And that is the kind of coaching job Dawn Staley was doing. If you're Caitlin Clark, at some point, you can't overcome every single one of those barriers.
I guess it's because I'd watched South Carolina consistently through the tournament, and they didn't steamroll. They had some close games, and I thought, well, maybe they just don't click down the stretch. Maybe there's an opening here for
No, what happens is you get complacent. I'm much better than you. So at the end of the day, no, that's what it is.
I agree.
I'm better than you. We're better than you, and we're not going to always beat you by 40. It's going to be because we're cruising along. We're not, and that's why Don would be so aggressive and mad at them because of that. Not finishing the deal, keeping people too close to you, and you're a much better team. Now you're in a championship game, and you play against NC State. You just wiped them clean off the floor.
It was ridiculous.
It was a wasted watch. Other than I like to watch it because of South Carolina and Dawn Staley, but other than that, it's a wasted watch. And now you look at this national championship game. Everybody elevated to the next level. As you said, the bench as well as the starters, all 10 of them, they elevated to the next level. If you rewind and you go back to round 1 or round 2, they gonna coast through that. That's even if they would have played Iowa in the first round or the second round, it would have been a tight game and they would have coasted through it. They probably still would have won, but they would have coasted through it because they would feel boring. I'm bored. I'm going to beat you anyway.
I think that's how they felt against Iowa a year ago in the semifinal.
Probably
they thought, this is nothing.
Yeah, right.
We got this. And all of a
happens.
sudden you don't got this because she was spectacular. And at least you had the revenge motive this time, so you had your eyes wide open. And she still almost closed your eyes in the first quarter, right?
I mean, Caitlin Clark played exceptional basketball all the way through this tournament. I don't consider her any kind of failure in any way.
No,
she
there's
couldn't
no
be
failure.
an undefeated team.
This is the magnitude of her. I was just a little disappointed. I just expected maybe a last bit of magic from her.
Time to go get that $5 million from the Big Three and keep it pushing.
Hey, that might be the way to go. And by the way, speaking of Dawn, we'll get deeply into this a little later in the show, but should she take an NBA job? And I'm looking at what she's got coming back next year, and she loses Cardoso, but that's all she loses. And I think they are so loaded. Could they go, here we go again? Could they win it again?
I wanted her to come coach the real USC men. But
Really? Thanks for watching, Undisputed fans. Do you want more highlights from the show? Make sure to click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from Undisputed.